3I Atlas, the third interstellar object we have detected. Not that we've only seen three, but it's the third that we have detected. The first being Oumuamua. I forgot the name of the second, and now we have 3I Atlas. Now, the second object was a confirmed comet. However, Oumuamua, the first one eye, was actually not a comet. Now, there's been a lot said about it that it could have had an invisible tail and all of this, but it wasn't a comet. It was some other object, very strange. But one thing about it, it did not deviate from the idea that an interstellar object would come in at a highly eccentric orbit, right? And it was just an interloper. It just visited us for a second or, just for a little while, and it should never come back. Now, these Borisov, I think it was, it was, like I said, was a comet, and also it did not deviate from the expected angle of entry into our solar system. And 3I Atlas, on the other hand, is very, very strange. It's a very interesting object. It's coming in with just a 5-degree deviation from the solar plane. Okay, that's or the ecliptic. That's very, very unusual, because you would think that an object coming in from another solar system would come in at a weird angle, not necessarily weird, just a very eccentric or very highly inclined orbit, or rather entry, and definitely not essentially pass by multiple planets in our system and looking as if it was intentionally set to do so. This is a very strange object. Not only that, it was just found because since it's been found, since it's been seen, it has not exhibited a tail. By now, it should be exhibiting some type of tail as normal comets do. This object does not. And not only that, it's extremely bright. It's extremely bright, as you can see here. Now, this is, a photo that is adjusted, but the fact that this object is moving also at an extreme rate of speed, I think it's been calculated at about 130,000 miles an hour. That's just unheard of. And also, it's what you would expect from an object coming from outside of our solar system. I think the highest speed, I think the most planets, or most of the planets, actually go around the sun at about 42 meters per second, I think it is. Like I said, this object's moving closer to about 60 kilometers. Objects in our solar system, the planets in our solar system, move at around the sun at about 40 kilometers per second. This object is moving closer to 60 kilometers per second, which is absolutely cooking, right? Now, the other thing about this 3I Atlas is that it is creating, or it has a carbon dioxide coma. This is very interesting. It's something we have never seen. It's not exhibiting a tail, and it has a type of, shall I say, shield around it, made of carbon dioxide. Now, I am going to entertain the spaceship, the interstellar spaceship idea, like Avi Loeb has suggested. Not that he's saying this is what it is exactly. It's just just something to consider, right? Now, again, I'm not saying that this is a spaceship, but we never know. There are a lot of things we just don't know. Just our galaxy alone is filled with billions, hundreds of billions of stars, and trillions of different objects, different types of objects out there. Who knows? There could be some, um, you know, there could be some civilization that is coming to check us out. Who knows, right? Uh, I mean, it's difficult to even say what the chances are. I think most officials or most science officials don't want to go down that route because it's not a popular route to go. But Avi Loeb has, kind of stuck his neck out there to bring up the possibility. Now, again, here, Sphere X. Now, the Sphere X observatory, I believe, did take a look at it. They pointed it towards it. Again, they found the carbon dioxide coma. And again, as Avi Loeb has mentioned before, no water ice, no water emissions or gas or H2O gas has been found in this object. If any has been found, it's been very, very little. Okay. So this carbon dioxide coma, I started looking into, or rather, I was researching on Grok, and I asked Grok, Super Grok rather, about this particular possibility, and it gave me something I wasn't expecting. It's very interesting what it said, but I'm going to get into that in just a second. Again, Avi Loeb is the one who has come out with this, and he has also mentioned that this possible craft, could be nuclear powered if it is an artificial object. All right. I'm just going to read a little bit what he said here. Harvard physicist Avi Loeb has recently suggested that the interstellar object 3I Atlas, detected in July 2025, might be a nuclear-powered spacecraft rather than a natural comet. Now, again, we don't know what it is. It could literally be anything, right? But I think this idea cannot be shelved, right? It cannot be overlooked because anything is a possibility. Now, it goes on to say, based on its unusual light emission and trajectory, again, this object is extremely bright. And it has been said, as in the, and I'm going to go into this in a second, what Grok said, but the object, for it to or have this much light, because it is also thought that this device or this object is creating its own light, because of the amount of light that is coming off the object. But you know what? I'm just going to go on. It says, this claim made in a blog post in August 2025 centers on a Hubble Space Telescope image showing a glow ahead of the object. That's another thing. It has a glow ahead of the object. They were saying it was a tail, but it's in front. So I've never seen a tail. I've never seen a tail in front. And that's kind of suggestive. But anyway, yeah, I've never seen an animal with a front tail. That kind of defeats the idea of having a tail. But anyway, it goes on to say, which Loeb argues cannot be explained by standard cometary outgassing or reflected sunlight, and instead might indicate a central light source. And it goes on to say, unusual light emission. Loeb points to a Hubble image from July 21st, showing a glow on the front side of 3I Atlas opposite to the expected direction of a cometary tail, suggesting the object might be generating its own light. Nuclear power hypothesis. He proposes that the light could originate from nuclear energy, potentially powering a spacecraft, with the dust seen on its surface, possibly being accumulated interstellar dirt. Now, like I said, it's very interesting that this object is also has a reddish hue to it. Now, despite some of the images you might see, it's kind of a bluish, but from what they said, it's kind of really more of a reddish. Just looking at the object, it's kind of a reddish hue to it. It goes on to say, trajectory and significance. Loeb emphasizes the object's precise trajectory, noting its retrograde orbit is highly unlikely to be random, 0.2% chance, and argues this fine-tuned path supports the possibility of intelligent design. He has advocated for sending NASA's Juno probe to intercept it for study, and I think that's a wise idea. I mean, it should be studied. I think there's the pushback to me that has been given for this idea just really kind of makes me a bit dubious because the Juno probe is set to be crashed or just, it's supposed to end its life being directed to the surface or, into Jupiter. So instead of just destroying it, they could send it over to take a look at this object, right? And why would somebody push back on that? I don't understand. That's a little suspect. Anyway, let's go ahead and go on. Scientific consensus and skepticism. Obviously, nobody agrees with him. It's just basically, I'm not going to go into that because I want to go into a couple other things here. Here, 3I Atlas is large and releases carbon dioxide. So it is a very large object, which kind of could explain the amount of light that it's releasing, but at the same time, it is obscured a bit by the CO2. It says here, the team of NASA's Spheric Space Observatory just reported tantalizing new data on the interstellar object 3I Atlas. The observations were made between August 8th through the 12th, when 3I Atlas was at a distance from the sun of 3.2 times 3.2 AU and a distance from Earth of 2.6 AU. This is Avi Loeb's. Actually, this was written by Avi Loeb. This is on Medium. Anyway, the new observations reveal a cloud of carbon dioxide, CO2 around 3I Atlas, corresponding to a mass loss rate of about 70 kilograms per second. No water, no H2O cloud was detected with an upper limit of 4.5 kilograms per second on the water mass loss rate. This is an order of magnitude below the previous claims of water detection with a mass loss rate of 40 kilograms per second at a larger distance from the sun of 3.5 AU. These early claims from two research teams were unsubstantiated by the reported data. As I argued in a previous essay, the excellent SphereX report notes that the lack of bright water gas coma is puzzling, as 3I Atlas was not too far outside the solar system's water ice line at 2.5 AU during the observations. Now, again, this was observed, a few days ago, and it was just a little bit outside the water ice line. They were expecting to see some water ice, even though it's outside the water ice line, some gas from that sublimation. However, it just is not being detected. It's actually, at a very, very small, it's a very small amount, if at all. Okay. Now, it could change as it gets closer to the sun. It is going to get, decently close to the sun. But right now, it is just not doing what a comet would normally do. Although, it goes on, although no water, H2O in gas form was identified from some absorption features in the reflected spectrum from the surface of 3I Atlas were consistent with a mix of water and carbon dioxide ices combined with organics, as often found on the surfaces of Kuiper-built objects in the solar system, which are similarly exposed to interstellar cosmic rays. Could it be that 3I Atlas is not a water-rich comet as envisioned by comet experts when it was discovered? That's a very good question. Probably not a comet. The SpherX images show 3I Atlas as a point source. No dust coma was resolved, implying that the glow of scattered sunlight around the object in its Hubble Space Telescope image is compact and amounts to a small amount of dust. So very little dust, no H2O gas, but a lot of CO2. Now, it goes on to say SpherX images were taken SpherX images were taken at specific wavelengths near the characteristic emission lines of water, H2O, which is 3.0 micrometers, carbon dioxide, CO2, 4.26 micrometers, and carbon monoxide, 4.7 micrometers. No coma was detected in water or carbon monoxide, which is interesting because it is CO2. However, the CO2 image shows a symmetric cloud around 3I Atlas with a brightness that declines with projected distance to the power of -3/2 out to distances of at least 348,000 kilometers. This corresponds to a steeply declining CO2 density with 3D radius of the power of -2.5. So basically, from the surface, from the center of the what we're seeing, the coma or the object, from the object going out, the density decreases is basically what it's saying. So it goes on to say, most interestingly, the flux detected at a wavelength of 1 micrometer from 3I Atlas suggests a large nucleus with a diameter of 46 kilometers. That is ginormous. If this represents a solid body, then the mass of 3I Atlas must be 1,000,000 times bigger, or 1,000,000 times larger than the previous interstellar comet 2I Borisov. This makes little sense, since we should have found an order of 1,000,000 objects of the size of 2I Borisov before discovering a 46-kilometer interstellar object. 46 kilometers, I think that's like maybe 30, up to between 30 and 35 miles across. I think, you can check it out for yourself. Moreover, as I noted in my first paper on 3I Atlas accessible air, the amount of rocky material per unit volume in interstellar space is too small by a factor of 10,000 than the value needed to deliver into the solar system one giant rock of this size over the Atlas decade-long survey. Alternatively, 3I Atlas may have targeted the inner solar system by technological design. This possibility is consistent with the alignment of its trajectory, which, you guys got to remember, there are so many oddities with this particular object. They're just like everything about it is extremely unusual and just shouldn't be. The 5% off the plane, the solar plane, or the ecliptic, I believe it is, or maybe, I think it's called the ecliptic. The brightness of the object, the size of the object, the speed of the object, so many things that are very unusual, that just too many coincidences. So the possibility is consistent with the alignment of its trajectory with the orbital plane of the planets around the sun, a coincidence of a part in 500 for random orientation. Again, it's how it's coming in, the fact that it's only 5 degrees off, and it's visiting, it's going the trajectory through the solar system. It takes it by 3 different planets. The lack of a cometary tail. What else? I don't want to this is going to take forever. In that case, the observed reddening of the spectrum of reflected sunlight should originate from the surface of the object, implying that the object is large and dominates the reflected sunlight rather than the dust cloud around it. Let me read the first part of this. The lack of a cometary tail in the Hubble Space in the Hubble Space Telescope image is evidence that there is not much dust around 3I Atlas, with particle size in the scale of the wavelength of sunlight, 0.5 micrometers. So let's go on. The CO2 mass loss amounts in the ablation of a millimeter thick layer from the surface of a 46 kilometer rock over a period of 10 years. This means that a relatively thin outer layer is sufficient to maintain the observed cloud of CO2 gas and dust around 3I Atlas, which lies under this outer layer is still unknown, or rather, what lies under this outer layer is still unknown. We are all waiting for the release of the first data from the Webb Space Telescope when it's observed. So the Webb telescope did take a look at it, but we still haven't gotten any information from that. It's like, I don't know why they're holding it up, but that also is a bit suspect. Here's hoping that as the sun turns on the heat on 3I Atlas in the coming months, it will reveal its true nature. So, yeah, we'll see what happens with this thing. Now, I do want to, let's go to a dark screen because I hate when it has the white in the background. But let's go ahead and take a look at this. Now, as I mentioned earlier, I did ask Grok about this. The question I asked was, let's see if it puts it on here. I asked Grok. I said, it has been observed that 3I Atlas has an extended carbon dioxide coma. If this is an object built by intelligent beings, could that coma represent a shield of sorts that could be protecting it from micrometeoroids within our solar system, or could it be a way to obscure the core object from being observed? Now, again, micrometeoroids would be a factor, kind of a concern, especially when you enter into a solar system. There's going to be more particles that would reside within, especially with it coming through, with it being close to the solar plane of the ecliptic and passing by the asteroid belt. Now, the asteroid belt is nothing like you see on TV, right? It's, they're just, you won't see big, like all of these asteroids hanging around. No, it doesn't look like that because there's so much space. Okay. Right. But still, they're going to be very small objects that would increase in intensity or flux, right? And the object would need protection from that. Now, when I first heard this yesterday, when it mentioned something about, the CO2, the first thing I thought about is CO2 would be an excellent gas. It would make an excellent gas shield. The reason why is because the molecule is very heavy, and it would provide much more density, more density than pretty much anything else. Not to mention, the ice would not be very heavy. It would provide a lot of dense gas for its relative weight, right, or its density. So this is what I came back with. Now I'm going to go ahead and read this. It's going to take a little while. So just bear with me. We're not that far in. All right. Assuming hypothetically, and this is what Grok said back to me, assuming hypothetically that 3I Atlas were an artificial construct, alien probe and such, the extended CO2 coma could plausibly serve as a protective shield. Now, again, I'm not saying that it is a protective shield. I just, like I said, I thought about this because just other things that I've seen about CO2. CO2 is much denser and heavier than the atmosphere that we have here. If you go to a place where there's just a kind of a sidebar here, looking at some of, nature shows and whatnot, there have been instances where there have been carbon dioxide fields, right, where it seeps out of the ground. And in those areas, you find a lot of animals dead, right? Because CO2 is colorless and, it's odorless, all of that. So, and it also sticks very close to the ground because it's much heavier than the air around, right? The atmosphere, it's much heavier, so it sticks close to the ground. When an animal sticks, like for example, a herbivore, it puts its head down to eat grass. And remember, CO2 is what grasses love, right? When it sticks its head down to eat, what is it going to do? Within a few seconds, it's going to pass out because of the lack of oxygen. Okay. And then also, once you get CO2 in your lungs, it's a bit difficult to get it out because it is heavier than normal, just atmosphere air, right? So, yeah, that's what I immediately thought of when I saw this, and I'm thinking, wow, that would make a really good shield, although it does disperse. But again, let's just read this. So it says shield against micrometeoroids. It could possibly serve as a protective shield against micrometeoroids in our solar system. Here's why. Based on physics and engineering principles, shielding mechanism in space, micrometeoroids, dust to pebble size 1 centimeter travel at relative speeds of 10 to 70 kilometers per second, posing puncture risks. Now, again, it may not be for micrometeoroids. It could just be from the charged particles that are coming from the sun. But let's go on. A dense gas coma like this, 70 kg a second CO2 output, creating a 348,000 kilometer cloud, could act as an artificial atmosphere. Okay, so basically this object could possibly just be creating an atmosphere around it, inducing aerodynamic drag and ablation of incoming particles. As a micrometeoroid plows through the gas, collisions with CO2 molecules would heat its surface, causing it to vaporize or fragment before reaching the core. Similar to how meteoroids burn up in Earth's atmosphere, or how comae naturally erode small impactors. For 3I Atlas, the coma's extent and density, declining with radius but significant near the nucleus, could provide meaningful protection over its 1 kilometer plus scale, especially if the gas is replenished via sublimation or onboard systems. This aligns with conceptual spacecraft designs using ejected volatiles like CO2 ice for active defense, as the gas mass required scales with threat flux. And interstellar space solar system micrometeoroid rates are low enough for such a system to be sustainable over millennia. So this could just, if it was a surface level, or if it, just had this ice around it, I don't know, maybe just a few millimeters thick, it would be sustainable over millennia, it's saying. Feasibility and efficiency. CO2 is ideal for this abundance. This dash gets me. Feasibility and efficiency. CO2 is ideal for this. Abundant, sublimes easily in vacuum without residue, and its heavier molecules impart more momentum in collisions than lighter gases like hydrogen. The observed production rate matches what a large object might need for intermittent shielding, and the symmetry suggests uniform coverage. However, it wouldn't stop larger threats, which it wouldn't really need to, without denser gas or add-ons like magnetic fields to confine plasma-ized CO2. So yeah, if you're talking about objects that go, that 5 centimeters or larger, it wouldn't do much. But I think that what it would possibly be more related to, or more of a protection against, are the small objects and the charged particles coming from the sun. Because we know, again, like the sun will interact with the object, and it has already sent a very large um, uh, uh, cloud, I'll say, of charged particles towards this device or this object, of which I think probably, well, it'll be less than half of that will actually impact it. All right, so let's go on. It could also function to obscure the core from observation. Obscuration effects. The coma already hinders Earth-based telescopes from resolving the nucleus precisely. Hubble images show elongation, but no clear shape. And size estimates vary widely due to scattered light from gas and ice grains. To sources, if intentional, this veil could hide artificial features, actinic hull shape, from optical infrared scrutiny, much like stealth tech or natural comets, nuclei being invisible amid bright comae. The CO2 dominant composition absorbs, scatters specific wavelengths near IR where SIRIX detected it, potentially tuned to evade common sensors. Loeb implies this by noting the true nature under the outer layer is unknown, and the lack of dust tail might minimize visual signatures. It goes on. In my view, and this is what Grok is saying, in my view, both interpretations are theoretically sound if we entertain an artificial origin, but the shielding role seems more practical given the solar system's micrometeoroid environment. Obscuration might be a bonus. Natural explanation, CO2 from primordial ices sublimating at roughly about 3 AU, fit better without anomalies, and upcoming JWST data could clarify if it's alien tech. The ecliptic alignment and size suggests deliberate reconnaissance with the coma as being multifunctional coding. With the coma as being a multifunctional coding. Oh man, reading all of that, speaking it all, it just is, man, makes your mouth numb, right? Anyway, I found, like I said, very, very interesting. Now, again, this is Grok. Like, you got to kind of punch Grok a little bit, and prod him a little. But again, I really didn't go too deep into this. I just asked a question about Theory Atlas, and this is what he gave me back. So I'm not saying, again, this is, I'm not saying what it is. We don't know. But it's going to be very interesting just following this over the next few months, up to a year, I guess. And, suffice it to say that a year from now, we'll know a lot more than we do now. And probably, if it is some type of intelligence, the probes would have been here, a long time by then. So, again, we'll see. It's very interesting, just entertaining these ideas and what it could be and the speculation. It's very, very interesting and definitely a fun thought experiment. I don't know. You guys tell me what you think if you are watching this video. Hopefully it wasn't too boring. It's kind of long, but definitely, some good information. But again, just put your information, or rather your thoughts below. Let me know what you guys think about this. And let's see. Let's keep our eyes open and our ideas in the clouds. Thanks a lot, guys. Have a great day and take care.